Okay, we are live on the Get Foxy show with Teal Fyrberg. Thank you so much, Teal, for being on the show today. I really appreciate you having you here.
Thank you, Terry. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, you just moved to Colorado, and so I really appreciate you taking the time because, man, moving is a task in and of itself.
It is. It has been quite challenging and exciting, but we're really glad to be here. Colorado is awesome.
Well, Teal, you are an amazing yoga coach and instructor. How did you get into this work?
Well, it's interesting. I've been doing it for a really, really long time because when I was 5 years old, both of my parents were into transcendental meditation. And so that was my first introduction to meditation. And they took me to the TM Center. And just like them, I received a mantra. And I have this very clear memory of sitting in this little room and, being told this is the mantra and then sitting there quietly, as a 5-year-old probably for about a minute and saying my mantra. And, so that was my first introduction. And then over the years, I started an asana practice, which is the postures that most people know. And into my teens, I even started teaching friends, I was really interested in sharing it with people. Then in my 20s, I started getting more serious with those studies and getting certifications and everything. And in my mid-20s is really when I started teaching. And so I've been teaching ever since. I taught for a long time for other people and then started my own business and my own studios. And now I have teach in person, teach workshops, and I also do online classes. So
that's fantastic. I don't know if I've met somebody who's actually been teaching yoga for that long.
Yeah, and I'm 47, so that's a lot of years.
Wow. That's a lot of knowledge and experience under your belt.
Yeah. A lot of practice, a lot of teaching.
Goodness sake.
And the practice is really, yoga, the thing about it is it's all about your own personal practice first and getting really ingrained in that. And then that's what continuously informs your teaching of others, is being able to go to that well of your own practice in which you're constantly discovering and then be able to share that. We have the wisdom that comes through the lineages that we learn, of course, that's so important. But in both of the systems that I work with yoga and also with Taoist Stone Medicine, there's a real emphasis on, what are you discovering constantly for yourself through doing the work?
Taoist Stone Medicine. Tell us a little bit more about that.
So Taoist Stone Medicine is really interesting. It's one of the real ancient foundations in Chinese medicine, but it's one that's kind of been hidden. It's not known a lot. And it works with the minerals. It works with placing them on the body, either on meridian points or through intuitive, work with the client. It also works with ingesting them in a vibrational method. So we do stone elixirs that are really capturing mostly the vibration of the stones, the energy of the stones. You also get a little bit of mineral content, but there's obviously some stones that we don't work with in that way because they might have arsenic or mercury or something like that in it. We wouldn't want to be ingesting that. And so it's a wonderful healing method. If you think about rocks and stones and the way that they are, they move in this slow, they develop in this slow geological, time patterns. And so, and they're deep. They're deep in the earth. And so that's sort of the signature of the medicine, that they work really at deep, deep levels. And so they're particularly good for things that are really stuck that maybe an individual has been working with for a long time but hasn't been able to shift. And so they're a really beautiful medicine for that. And they can also be for surface things, like if you have a cold or something, you can use them. There's certain minerals, like for instance, calcite, that help to release things to the exterior, help to push out pathogens, just like we would use certain herbs or you would use certain acupuncture methods to do that. So they're very well-rounded and it's a great medicine.
That's fantastic. So then you're combining the yoga work with the stone medicine work?
Absolutely. Yeah. So there's workshops that I do where I'm incorporating, like I've done one that's rock your pelvis. And so we're working with, particularly with yoga postures, breathing techniques that help to bring the energy up from our root and work with that type of energy. And also with the physical, structures of the hips and the pelvis and the legs and all of that. And then it incorporates the stones that also support that.
Mm-hmm. Now, who would benefit from a Rock Your Pelvis workshop?
Well, everybody really benefits from it because, we all have this root of energy this is really like the foundation base note, of all of our energy in the body. And if we can tap into that and keep that both grounded and, be able to access it and draw it up so that we can use it in our daily life, then that's great. But I particularly love doing this work for women because, women, because of the womb space, whether they still have a physical womb or not, they have just a really bountiful energy there. And so it's a great way. I know your work is so much focused on keeping women really foxy. I sometimes use the word juicy.
Mm-hmm.
And so pelvic work is a huge way of doing that.
I had a question and it went right out of my brain.
Oh, no, that's okay. That happens to me all the time.
Oh, goodness. Well, you say juicy, I say foxy, but really it kind of equates to the same thing. So what, or at least I think so. I mean, that's one of the questions that I ask very often on this show is what does being foxy, or in this case, juicy, mean to you, Teal?
Yeah, I think that, foxy, juicy, I think that is feeling passionate. I think it's feeling empowered. I think it's feeling, just good in our own embodiment, in our body, mind, and spirit. And, through the course of our life, again, men and women, but I think especially for women, because women, we are so tapped into other care, caring for others, putting our focus outward. And that can be very, very draining of our chi, our energy. And so self-care techniques, whether that's going to a wonderful acupuncture treatment like you offer, or going to a yoga class, or using some stone elixirs, whatever that is, that's what keeps people, I think, foxy and juicy and alive. And if we can go to our own well and really nourish ourselves, then we can keep going and keep giving to others. Otherwise, eventually, that well just starts running dry.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
What do you do for yourself to keep yourself foxy?
I have a lot of rituals, and one of the first things that I talk about in all of my classes is creating sacred space, because this is really, really important. And a sacred space can be just it can be just as big as your yoga mat with maybe a candle and a stone, if you like that, or some object that's really meaningful to you. Um, and just having this be the place that you go to again and again in a routine, because routine really, it creates a container for us and it really supports us. And so for me, I get up early in the morning. I've done this my whole life, no matter what job. Even when I had a job that I had to be in there at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, a regular sort of scheduled job. I got up at 5, so that I could sit and I could meditate. I could drink some tea or some coffee, write in my journal a little bit. Those types of rituals in the morning are really important for me, because once the chaos of the day starts, it can be hard to come back to that center. But if we create the center and the foundation, it's so much easier to go back to that, no matter what happens.
When working with your patients, right, I guess you would call them clients. I would call them patients.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Students.
Same difference. As a massage, I started out as a massage therapist, and we'd call them clients, and then I got to be an acupuncturist, and we'd call them patients. And now my brain kind of switches back and forth between the two.
Absolutely.
I'm curious to know what the biggest transformation you've seen in your practice has been.
Do you mean with a particular individual, or?
Yes, certainly.
Oh man, there's one story I love to tell. I love to work with young, people and stuff, but I love to work with elderly people. And I had a woman when I was living back near Charlotte who came to me to do private work, and she was post-surgery, major back surgery. She had a bunch of other health conditions, including diabetes and high blood pressure. She had just lost her husband and she'd lost one of her daughters. So she was deep into grief. She was really trying to heal her body, spirit, everything. And so we started working together twice a week for an hour, and we did 30 minutes of yoga. And we started mostly doing chair yoga, and then I would do 30 minutes of body work with her. I also used to do massage, so I would do that as well. And we did this for about 3 years together consistently. And she just completely bloomed and blossomed. And by the end of it, we were doing standing and mat yoga. She was almost off her diabetic medication. She was off her blood pressure medication. She was eating much more healthfully. And again, talking about, foxiness, juiciness, even for, this woman who is in her mid 70s. I mean, she just really, really bloomed in her health and also in her healing of her spirit, from everything she'd been through. So that's one of my favorites.
That's fantastic. I
Yeah.
love hearing stories like that.
Yeah. Yoga is for everybody. I don't care what age you are, what weight you are, what health, level you're at. Yoga can meet anyone, anywhere they are. So.
I've really kind of just opened my eyes to yoga within the last it's been a couple of months. I took my first yoga class. I mean, I've been studying Chinese medicine, been a massage therapist for almost 20 years now, but had never taken an actual yoga class. I'd studied qigong, I've done martial arts, and I was really amazed at the difference I felt in my body just after that one little introductory beginning to yoga class.
Yes.
It was like, wow, I feel so much more solid and grounded and present in my body. Wow, I have to start doing this more often.
It's so powerful. And I've had so many people call me, over the years looking for classes and saying, well, I want to come, something's drawing me to calling you, but, I'm attention deficit, I'm really hyperactive, I don't sleep well. There's no way. I know I can't meditate. I know I can't be in a class. There's no way. I'm not going to be relaxed. I'm not in great shape. I said, just come. Just try one and just see. And again, I hear the story that you just told me. They walk out saying, at the end in Shavasana, which is the relaxation posture, my mind slowed down, or I felt like my mind had turned off, and I really relaxed for a while. And then I'll get a call. I slept that last night. I slept for the first time in like 6 years. I mean, these kind of miraculous, even after hearing it for 23 years of teaching. And so many years of practicing, I'm still sort of blown away by it. It's a really quick transformational technology.
For me, I think my personal challenge is I've kind of made myself fairly busy with everything that I've got going on. And so kind of figuring out when I can carve out time to incorporate these practices has been a challenge. And I know most of my listeners too are very busy women. They tend to be entrepreneurs. They tend to be moms. They've got this going on over here. They've got that going on over here. And it's just, where do you find the time? How do you carve out the space?
Right. Well, and that's why we see a trend in yoga studios now to take classes down to like an hour class, where traditionally yoga classes are usually an hour and a half or 2 hours. That seems really long, but that gives you a longer time to have a relaxation, the shavasana at the end, which is also an integration period, which is really important for the practice. But even an hour is sometimes really hard for people to carve out. And so about 2 years ago, I really sat down. I wanted to do an online class, and I started, looking. I wrote down a list of all the things I've heard over the years, and the time factor was huge. and I can't get in the routine. I can't find the time. So I created this class that's yoga for busy people, and it's 10 minutes a day for 40 days. And the idea behind it is the 10 minutes a day, each of those practices, and it includes the asana work, the pranayama, which is breathing, meditation, we do a little mantra, all these different things. Those practices in those 10 minutes are super powerful, but what's even more powerful is you create a routine. And then out of that, you know, what I find is people are often able to say, okay, you know, I've gotten used to carving out this 10 minutes a day. I can see where I can fit it. I've made the time for it. Now maybe I can go and do this hour class or an hour, you know, even if that's only a couple times a week. And so it's creating the space and it's creating routine. I think that's really the key, because then we become convinced that, yeah, we can actually do this. We can fit this in. We just have to make ourselves the priority. And that's the hard step, because sometimes it seems selfish, but it's really not. It's the most giving thing we can do.
And people can find this program on your website, you said?
They can, yeah. They can just go to wildteal.com, and there's links to that class, and also yoga for busy people, and then also a class that I have on tektites, which is my first class that I'm offering from, you know, on the Taoist Stone Medicine. And tektites are meteorites, so they're really interesting stones to work with.
Fascinating. And well, now you've piqued my curiosity.
Yeah.
What makes a tektite worth using therapeutically?
Yeah. Well, tektites are interesting because they're a little bit like obsidian, because they're space class. So they're, you know, they come with this meteoric, you know, alien material, so to speak. They come in, they hit the ground, they fuse with the terrestrial material. They're very good for shifting things in it that have to do with our trajectory in life, our soul path, which is a main interest of me. You know, if people are struggling with, like, why am I really here? What am I really doing? Or feeling very dissatisfied with their life, tektite is a really nice stone to work with and to help shift that. They're also known in Taoist Stone Medicine to be holders of past, present, and future timeline, which sounds kind of like very esoteric and maybe strange. But if you think of the way that we use crystals, in computer chips, you know, we use silicon, silica, we use those things. They are primed to hold information. And so by tapping into the stone, meditating with it, I have guided journeys, you know, in the class, we can deepen our own intuition and deepen our connection to, you know, the universe, and sort of like pull in, okay, what are some maybe new out of the box ideas about what I can do with my life, or how I can change the things that aren't working?
Who would have known?
I know. The stone medicine stuff is,
Oh, that's deep. It's not surprising coming from a teacher like Jeffrey Wen, but
yes, he is an amazing man.
I've had the pleasure of sitting in on one of his lectures at the Acupuncture Association of Colorado's annual meeting, and he flat blew my mind. Didn't talk a whole lot about stone medicine, but still, that guy is wow. I mean, just a wealth of information when it comes to therapeutic modalities.
He is. He covers all of it. I mean, everything from all the acupuncture to the herbs, the essential oils, the stones. Yeah, he's a fascinating guy.
Yeah, yeah. He's
Every time I see that he's having a class, if I can get there, wherever it is, I go. You know, I was lucky when I was in Asheville because he teaches there quite often, but I've gone out to the Tucson Gem Show for 13 years. He taught there every year for 3 days, you know, over the course of that show. So it was perfect. You could go there and buy the stones and also, you know, study with him for 3 days. But I think he may actually be switching. He said he's going to switch to Denver. So that might be a neat opportunity.
wow.
I know. Yeah, at the Denver Gem Show. Really
I'll
cool.
have to keep an eye out for that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
So when you're not teaching yoga
Mm-hmm.
and you're not helping people figure out what stones would be best to help them in their personal situations. What are you doing for fun? What do you do to take care of you?
Well, I practice yoga a lot, and I do that in the form of meditation and doing a lot of breathing exercises. I love pranayama, and of course, I love my asana practice. And then I'm a huge hiker. I love to be outside. This new place that we're living in is on 34 acres at the top of a mountain. And so I can just literally go out yesterday, for instance, I went out my back door, literally, hiked to the top of this huge mountain with my dog and hiked around there for a couple hours and then came back down. Next month, I'm climbing Kilimanjaro. So I love adventure travel, and I do that with my family a lot. Visiting with my niece and nephews and my family. You know, we moved here to be closer to family. So family is a big thing for me, and being with my husband and my dog. And I love to move. So I love being outside. That's a rejuvenating thing for me.
Excellent. What prompted you to decide you're going to climb Kilimanjaro?
Well, a couple of years ago, my dad, who's 71, and my stepmom, and my husband and I went to Peru, and we did a total of 8 days trekking there, up to pretty high altitude, 16,200 feet, many times, some pretty hard treks and camping and everything. And I've always been a big camper and hiker and everything. And so this seemed like the next challenge that we wanted to take on. So actually this time it's going to be my dad, my bonus mom, my youngest brother, and myself. And so we're going to do that. We're going to climb to the roof of Africa. It's the fourth highest peak in the world. It's one of the 7 summits. So it's the highest summit on the African continent.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose where you're at right now, you're probably doing some pretty good altitude training just by moving up to the mountains in Colorado.
Yeah, it was part of what kind of precipitated us doing this move more quickly than more slowly, because we're at about 7,200 feet here. So at least it helps. You know, the top of Kilimanjaro is 19,300, a little bit higher.
Just a tad.
So it's going to be really exciting and very challenging, but that's going to be good.
Well, another question I like to ask most of my guests is, who do you consider to be Foxy in your world right now?
Wow. Well, goodness. Gosh, there's a lot of people that come to mind. I think that my sister-in-law, Sarah, is, I think, one of the Foxy's people I know. And the reason why is because she, no matter what, carves out that self-care time. And, you know, it's not always easy, but she's got 2 kids. She works full time. She's very busy. She does charitable work, you know, but she carves out that time for her. She gets up at 4:45 and goes to yoga sometimes. You know, actually, a lot of times she'll go 4 times a week. You know, she knows, she's recognized, like, I have to make that time for myself. And she builds little rituals into her day, whether it's just making a cup of tea and sitting down for a few minutes. She loves to knit. Also, my stepmom, I call her my bonus mom. She's really great, and she's in her mid-60s. And she and my dad, you know, they go on these 17-mile hikes down in Arizona all the time. And, you know, they have, again, really carved out and cultivated practices for themselves that keep them happy and motivated and healthy in body, mind, and spirit. And I really admire that. So those are 2 people that come to mind.
Excellent. The other question I like to ask is, what is one piece of advice, if you could give just one piece of advice to my listeners about how to stay foxy, what would it be?
It would be to breathe. And that sounds kind of like, well, yeah, I got to breathe. I'm breathing every second. But, you know, breathing is one of our foundational practices in yoga. And it's the first thing we teach is Dirga Pranayama, which is 3-part complete breath. That's inhaling deeply into the belly, then letting the midsection of the rib cage expand, and then letting the upper part of the lungs fill up. And that's so important because normally what happens is we breathe really shallow in that top third of the lungs. So the whole body is not being oxygenated properly. And I mean, if we're not being at least getting that in, no matter what else is happening, then we're really going to be functioning at a lower level. So just, and you know, breath is something you can do anywhere. You know, you can't always just drop into, you know, downward dog in a grocery store, but you can be standing in that grocery line, even with the screaming kids, and go into that deep belly breathing, deep inhales, deep exhales, just trying to lengthen the exhale a little bit. So make the exhale a little bit longer each breath than the inhale, because that helps us to relax more. And just doing something simple like that, you know, and sort of using it as a biofeedback loop, like realizing when you're feeling stressed, contracted, breathing shallow, and just take 3 deep breaths. And I can tell you, if you really make that your sole practice, to say, okay, I'm going to focus on breathing. I'm going to notice when I'm getting stressed out, and I'm going to breathe. I'm going to do it with my kids even, you know, say, hey, oh, look, we're all getting kind of crazy here. Let's take those 3 deep breaths. You will see just a massive, massive transformation in your life. That could be your whole practice, your whole life, and nothing else. And you'd see a big improvement.
Simple but powerful.
Exactly. And portable. We need portable.
In this day and age, you bet.
Yeah.
Well, how can people get a hold of you if they want to know more about you and your work, Teal?
Sure. Well, really easy. My website is wildteal.com. And that's the easiest way to find me. And you can email me there. Actually, my email is teal@wildteal.com. So that's simple. And yeah, I'd love to hear from anyone that, you know, is working with these things that we're talking about. And, you know, I'm here to help. So I do private work, I do Skype sessions, I do the online classes, I do, you know, next year or this year, now it's 2018, I'll be planning some workshops for later in the year and that sort of thing. So
good. I heard you mention online classes. And I
mm-hmm.
think with my listeners, I'm finding that I'm getting listeners from all over the United States. So
Okay.
being able to point them to online resources is a good thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the Yoga for Busy People is on demand, as is the Tektite course. And so they can sign up anytime and start. And you get daily emails. And again, the class is in a format of audio recordings, videos. There's a forum at the end of each lesson where you can ask questions or interact with other students. So it's a very robust system that I'm using. And actually, I'm going to put in a 30% off coupon for your listeners. And it'll be just the word Foxy, so very simple. And they can use that 30% off for either of the classes and also in my Obsidian Butterfly Elixirs shop, which has all my stone medicines, you know, if they want to look into, get into that.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for that, Teal.
Yeah.
So there you go, ladies. Take Teal up on her offer. Just check out her website, and when you go to checkout, type in the word Foxy, and you will get that discount. That's so generous. Thank you so much. And looking at the time, it does look like we are just about out of time. So thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time. I know you are a busy, busy lady with getting the move going and getting furniture set up in your new place and getting set up to start teaching here in Colorado. So I so very much appreciate you being on the show today.
Oh, well, thank you for having me, Tara. I can't thank you enough. I love it, and I love what you're doing here, and it's really been a pleasure, and I appreciate it.
You betcha.